Okay, we'll see how this goes. I'm after my sadly much documented struggle with technology, where I was trying to figure out whether I was on screen or not. Now, of course, I'm in a new situation, and I'm realizing now I actually could have set up the alternate screen. Next week, I'll be able to do that, so I can actually see myself, see what I'm doing. But I recognize that as long as you live can see me, I'm a happy camper, and I apologize in advance to people who might be viewing later if I'm cut off either at the waist or at the head, or something gets mucked up. But it's practice, not perfection. That's the name of the game, right? So I thought what we would do to start off today, as a way of integrating the meditative and the sort of more breathing practice before moving into asana proper. All of these, by the way, designations are a bit arbitrary, like where one starts and one ends. But in any case, like if the whole practice could be meditative, I guess is what I'm saying, awesome. But at least to the extent that we're really starting with some stillness or close to stillness, I thought we would move through the hip series, because that's kind of a nice, relaxing way of tuning into the body, or at least it can be. And specifically to your breath, like we'll actually count breaths for this. So if you're, I think all of you here have done the hip series with me, but just as a refresher, we're going to move our hips one at a time in a variety of different directions. Moving it into flexion, extending it, rotating it in and out, taking it away from our body, bringing it in toward our body. The idea being here that by moving through our hip joint in all these different directions, it's very much like, taking the axle, well, here being the hip, represented here by my hands, taking the axle of a car and moving it in all the different directions so that we're lubricating the joint and just getting things feeling nicely. And I can't emphasize enough, and I'm saying this from experience, ego-driven experience, it truly is not how high your leg gets or far over your leg gets. I would say, as a general kind of approach, if it feels like you're trying, you're too far. How's that? If it feels relaxing and comfortable without being dozy and like spaced out, bingo. I don't know. Excuse my technical language there. Does that make sense? Is that good? Okay, so yeah? Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna start with a strap, and I was just mentioning before I started the tape rolling that if you don't have a strap, most of these moves you can do just with you can do hands-free, but also if you've got a towel, which I think I actually have here, okay, bath towel is going to, if you just kind of bunch it up, you're gonna accomplish very much, yeah, that's it, you're in exactly what we would do with the strap. Okay, let's keep the breath, and certainly now you can come down onto your back if you want. I'm not going to just as I patter you into the practice without, and you don't have to jump right into the hip series at all. I mean, I know some of you know where we're going, and so if you've already gone there, that's cool. But otherwise, just arriving on the mat, just allowing your back to come down and to just lie there and repose for a second, or even a few seconds. In fact, let's drop the seconds, the whole time element, and make it about breath. Just notice where you are. I am noticing where I am. I started taping these for our group last summer. This is where I taped the very first one, and then haven't been back, so it's very nice to be back here. I must say, I recognize it's not always possible, but if and when we have the ability to practice out of doors, it is like the best. It is just the best yoga. Now, the best yoga truly is the one that involves you. It doesn't really matter where you are, but just take notice of your surroundings. That can be with eyes closed as well. There are other senses. I'm pretty sure I read about it in a book. So just check out your situation without trying to affect it, without trying to change it. Just the simple act of being a witness. And the even simpler, and yet for many of us more challenging, act of being a witness without being an actor. What's the lay of the land? And noticing the internal environment every bit as much as the external environment. As branches drop on me from the trees. Sometimes taking note of the external environment is a good thing. But equally so, we can be so externally focused that we're missing all of the, the winds that are blowing, the storms, or the sunny skies, whatever that might happen to be inside. And so the point is that we're here. We're right here, wherever we are. In fact, we're all right here together right now. As much as I complain about the hassles of learning technology, what a miracle this is. We couldn't have imagined many things a couple of years ago. The fact that we can, with such ease in some ways, connect with one another over great distance. How cool is that? Okay, and let's tune into your breath. So we're not even moving into movement yet. The first movement is the movement of the diaphragm. I'm going to give you just a few simple guidances. Notice I did not say instructions. I most certainly did not say commands. But just a few ideas that you might use to guide your breath through this first moment or two, but also through the rest of the practice. The breath is a wonderful barometer of how things are going in that internal landscape. And also, by becoming aware of our breath, we can, to some extent, shape our experience. So just what I would suggest is, if your nose is not blocked, let's opt for breathing through our nose rather than our mouth. Secondly, let's not think about breathing down into our belly. Let's think about expanding the sides of our ribs out as we breathe. So it's like an expansive breathing, low, as opposed to pushing the breath down toward our pelvis. You might even, as you breathe here, notice that. It's a subtle distinction that I'm making there, so I don't mean to overcomplicate it, but it's something I've been playing with. The tendency that I have, and that many yoga teachers I think have, is to talk about the breath, dropping the breath down into the belly, which of course then it rebounds up into our chest. Let's drop that and instead. Think about expanding the breath, softening the breath. The opposite of being technical. It's being totally somatic. Okay, good. And whatever shape or form your breath takes, however long or short it is, so long as it's taken with ease and you're aware of it, we're in a good place. Okay. And when you are ready, you may wish to reach for your strap or reach for your towel or blanket. And like I say, if you don't have those, you can truly just grasp your upper leg just above the knee, and that would accomplish the same. If you are seating a strap, so we're moving our hip to start into flexion, so we're going to move our toes up, and really, like I say, it's not about how high we get our foot in the air. I'm going to lay back here in a second. Instead, it's about closing the angle between the front of your thigh and your belly. Okay? And the strap here, or the towel, is not about pulling down into it. Okay? Instead, it's simply a guidance. If anything, what I'm really feeling here is, one, the breath. Stay here for 5-ish breaths, 7 breaths. So I'm not pulling down into my foot, I'm pressing the foot up into the guidance of the strap or into the guidance of the towel. I'm just trying to balance your body. Notice the weight of your body. Is it in one side of your hip or one hip as opposed to the other? Can you balance that out if you've kind of flopped to the side? I'm exaggerating that, kind of moving side to side. Toes, if anything, can come down toward your face, and I actually have my strap up along my toe bases, which is going to bring the stretch into my lower legs and my calves. Well, hello, little Henry. Thanks, buddy. Oh, hello, Josie. I've got some assistance. Thanks, guys. Okay. Breathing here. Relaxing. Get going, you. Go, go, go. Go, go, go. Thanks, buddy. So definitely what we're not doing here is anything that resembles violence to ourselves. I say this as someone who has experienced this directly. For a long time, this pose has felt like a race against myself to get my foot, I don't know where, by my ear, some arbitrary limit. Forget about it. We're all about the good feels here. Okay, then let's gather if it's your right leg that you're with, and notice I said if, because if you've started with your left, that's totally okay. Just, I'm going to be cueing the right leg, so you can just, if I say right, then you go left. I say left, you go right. Okay, so with our right leg in the support, let's take both ends of the towel or the strap and wrap them into our left hand. Okay, and then from here, really ground your right hip down into the mat. Feel it connect with the floor with your foot. Okay, and then ever so slightly, and of course we can bring a little bend into our knee if you're feeling any pain or resistance in there. Again, gentle is better. Just slowly guide your toes over till, now this is going to vary by your body. I would say until you feel something ideally along the outer right thigh. Right now I'm kind of touching this, the hip and the thigh on the outer line as you pull your leg across to the left. So I've got mine roughly, my toes are roughly even with my left hip point. So we're pulling across the midline of our body. And if it's helpful to you, you might think here about, or feel here, your breath also traveling down that midline of your body. It is a way of centering in yourself. If you feel like you're coming off the rails, find the midline. Breathing here. Truly, the most support we can give to ourselves here, and you may notice that if you stay here for time, for breaths, that the pose changes, that your body will slowly begin to trust you. Say, oh right, I actually can move a little bit more deeply here. Again, deeper not the goal, deeper often the result. Okay, let's gently bring our leg back through the center, and then unwind what you're holding on to, wind it into the other hand. So right leg, right hand, and then super slow, on your next exhale, take your leg out to the right. Notice the tendency to roll off of the left hip. See if you can bring your weight into the left hip so that it's not a tip. Okay? I just emphasize that. It may mean that your right leg doesn't go as far over. That's okay. Think about bringing your toes in the direction of your ear. And we are not, this is not a class in contortion, so don't worry about how far it gets. Just opening the body up, breathing into it. And then from there, we're going to lose the strap or lose the towel. You can just drop it right where it is. Bring the left, actually, let's start with the left leg along the mat, and we'll just bring our right ankle directly across our left leg, just above the knee, so that the outer ankle of your right foot actually crosses the knee. You can stay here, gently pressing your right knee forward and down. If it feels, okay, if that's feeling like an opening, as we externally rotate, that's the movement we're coming into, okay? We've pulled through midline, we've pulled away from midline, and now we rotate away from it again. We can also bring the left foot flat onto the mat. We can also bring the left foot up, place it on an imaginary chair, maybe looping the hands. Yeah. Okay, there's a lot of different variations here. The best one is going to be the one that feels relaxing, that feels like you're doing a service to your body rather than asking for performance. Okay. If you've got your knee bent, and just because we're here, this is kind of part of my own practice that I always go to, bring your foot down, okay, which is to say not part of the formal series as I was trained, but who cares about that? I just like the feel of this. Instead, let's take our right foot, so keeping the outer ankle attached to the upper left leg, and just drop your hip down so that the foot comes down to the ground beside you on the left. A little twist. And you might even reach up with your left hand to the outer part of the left knee. Pressing. Now my right hip is now off of the ground, and that's totally okay, but I'm moving it down in the direction of that and gently pulling on my knee to effect a stretch through the back of the hip, the glute of your butt. Okay. Breathing here. And then you might use both hands on the ground to ground yourself, bring yourself back up. Okay. And foot comes down on the mat, both feet together, okay, flat on the mat, okay, and then let's step our right foot about the distance of your calf away from your left foot, so out to the side a little bit, okay. You can peek at me if that's, I'm trying to cue this to, as precisely or as deliberately as I can so that you can just relax and you don't need to see. I'm also doing this to compensate for the fact that, as I say, I may not be on camera anymore. Okay. And then when you're out here, let's take the toes of the right foot away from the ground. So what we're not doing is locking in. Drop in. This is going to ensure that we're not torquing our knee. We're not causing any pain in there. And then turn your hip internally. So we're rotating in, the feeling of your knee coming forward and down toward the center line of your mat. So feeling this on the groin side, perhaps. I say perhaps because I don't know what you're feeling in your body. Only you know that. So you can just pay attention in there to the feels. Okay. Sometimes I like to bring my left heel across the top and actually nudge. And it's not pressed down. It's more like rotating the thigh, like helping, assisting with the rotation. And then we'll release that. And then a couple of options here. I'm going to show both. You can decide which one. It depends really what feels most restful and most accessible. Okay. Option one is to come, so we're going to extend our hip now, is to come onto your left side. Okay. Make your body as straight as you can. Okay. Because if we hunch over here, if we're curled, we're not going to get as nice an extension in our hip. And then let's take our right hand and just place it on the mat in front of us just for a little bit of support. Just ensuring that the side of your body isn't pressing down too, like there's a little bit of room underneath at the kind of the side of the hip, the love handle area, okay? And then let's bend our knee. Notice I didn't say anything about grabbing anything. Just bend your knee and press your foot back in space with muscular action rather than with an assist. Like you're bringing your heel to your bum. And then you might, now that held for a moment or two is really going to kick some effort in, some contraction in the back of your leg, the hamstring. Oh, very good. Wet dog from the leg. Thank you for coming up and shaking on me. Okay, let's reach for the front of our ankle, or it might be further up the leg, and then press into the hand, pull the leg back, and hopefully feeling stretch here through the front of the thigh, the front of the hip. Okay? alternately, if that reach does not feel, so if you're there and that feels nice, then there you are. Otherwise, another nice place to go is into a low lunge, okay? And to extend, we're gonna make that right leg the back leg. In other words, our left foot would come forward. You'll notice this is kind of, the low lunge is a nice twofer because we're getting the flexion on the other side and we're getting the extension here. Still breathing. And releasing. Okay. And then from there, let's find our way back onto our back and we'll move into the other side. Okay. I'm going to start this time without the straps just to show what this might look like if you find yourself, heaven forbid, without a yoga strap or a towel nearby. Okay. So notice we're not pressing our low back into the mat. There's like a little bit of space. So we've got the natural curve of our spine. Okay. In other words, what we want this to be about is opening up our hips, not torquing our back, torquing our knees, creating a bunch of stress, okay? Let's grounding the right heel into the mat to support us, feeling the weight of our hips on the mat, lift the left leg. You can see I've just looped my hands behind my left thigh. And breathing. Pressing, especially without the assistance of the strap or towel, pressing, no, I'm just doing this to show. So if you've got the strap or towel, please feel free to go there. But otherwise, breathing in, feeling like on the inhale, you're pressing ever so slightly up through the ball of your big toe base toward the sky. As you exhale, a gentle little release and recoil, like you're working a little bit less hard. The natural relaxation response of the exhale is going to help us with this. Okay, and then from here, what we're going to do is guide across. Okay, again, just bringing, I'm actually going to release my leg. So I'm doing a little bit more work. That's the other thing. It's a little bit more effort to hold the leg in this position. I'm going to actually bring my right hand to the outer part of my left leg, and it could be the thigh or it could be just below the knee. Use two hands if that is feeling like too much work. And then if you've got anything in your way, as I do, I think, yeah, I'm going to hit something, that's okay. I'm going to have to shimmy over, but as you were, let's bring your leg down to the side. And I'm actually going to, because I've got this little glass wall beside me, I'm going to just use that as my support. You've got nothing that you need to attend to but this. No list to cross items off of, know where to go. And just be here. Trying to affect my inner Bob Ross there, if that makes any sense. Be the beautiful tree. Just relax into it. Okay, let's bring that ankle across the knee. Okay, either starting in the figure four with our right leg extended or bending the knee. And if you're wondering, which should I do? Try both. What feels nicer? What feels more interesting? I mean, ultimately, there are some days where I will be in this kind of figure four with leg extended because it just feels super restful. And who doesn't need more of that? Breathing into that rest, becoming that rest. Okay? Or if it's like, no, I've got like my hips feeling tight, I really want to open the hip up. I think when people are talking about opening, quote unquote, opening their hips in yoga, often they're referring to this exact move, which is to externally rotate. here's one thing you can do, is to take your hands onto your thigh and actually rotate it out like you're turning a corkscrew away from the midline of your body. Okay. Alternately, you can come up, you can interlace, and breathing. And then allow that right foot to come down, keeping the left foot where it is, and we'll just allow the whole kit and caboodle here to just drop down to the side. Okay, you might reach for the outer side of the left knee and hug it in. Resist, gently resist, down with the left hip toward the mat. Oh yeah. You might even get this into the side, like into your kind of lower, like oblique area here, the side of your hip. That's really cool too. Again, we're all about chasing the feels, where it feels nice, where it feels interesting. Not worried about doing it right. Okay? Let's bring both feet together. Shoot you back into the center of my mat. Okay, and then take that left foot out if you are in fact on the left. Unhook the toes so that we're not going to twist our knee. I went to knee twisting class earlier, not as much fun as yoga. Drop the knee down. Option to bring the right heel. And again, not a push, more of a pull twist. So you're helping to rotate into or internally to the hip. And as much as the external, the hip opening, gets so much love, so much talk when people start talking about yoga. I'm a big fan of this. We don't get enough of this counter action. Most of us anyway. Let's release that. Ooh, yeah, there we go. Might even, just before we move on, let's take both feet as wide as the mat and just give ourselves a little swish side to side with our knees. No, that's breaking the flow maybe of what pose comes next, but as I said, there are no rules. At least none that I feel like we need to follow. If you're listening to yourself, which is exactly what I was doing with this suggestion, then you're in the right place. Okay, let's extend both legs. Scooch over onto the right side of your body. I've actually propped my head up, okay, without collapsing into my shoulder, so it's a nice even stance, okay? And then I'm gonna bring my left heel towards my bum. And I'm just gonna try to bring the knee back in space. Warming the leg up, contracting the muscles, getting things working here. Then reaching, okay? And I'm not gonna show the, oh yes I am, what am I saying? I'll come to the low lunge in a second. So you can be here, or you can just jump right into your low lunge. Okay, release that. If you're coming to the lunge, remember we're extending the left hip if you're on that side. So that becomes the back leg because we're gonna square the hips and press forward into the left hip, flexing the right. There we go. And we'll release out of that. Okay, and then if being on your knees isn't uncomfortable, how about this? A little, just like the hokey pokey, bringing your hips through a few circles. I think that there's a proportional relationship, or maybe inverse proportional relationship, to how cool something looks versus how good it feels. So like for a long time I felt really silly suggesting these little hip circles, like but it feels so nice. Okay, and then from here we'll pause for a second. How are we feeling? Doing okay? Okay. That is, in essence, although I always call this the hip series, like really that is a form of a flow practice. We're moving with our breath, we're being mindful, and we're moving through sort of a was going to say intelligent. Let's say semi-intelligent because I'm leading. Series of moves to create some space in our body, in this case in our hips. Okay, let's move into, are you down for some salutations? Just a few. I was saying in the emailer that I sent out that that I've had periods in my own practice where I have just completely eschewed salutations for weeks or even months at a time. It just like I say, it's like for whatever reason they were not calling to me, and then I'll have periods where it's like I can't get anything, you know, I'll just go and do sun salutations for half an hour. So again, there isn't a right or a wrong. I decided, you know, maybe we do these today because I don't often offer them in the context of our classes, and that seemed like a bit of an omission. Okay, so let's start with the classical Surya Namaskar. See, I default to where I was trained or how I was trained. So this is the classical Sun Salutation, which is a lunge-based moving through the legs, okay, as opposed to some of the others. Anyway, let's not talk yoga, let's do yoga. So a couple of options here. I'm going to come up, and I'm actually going to show you a couple of versions. So one, you could come up to stand, okay? But if coming to stand is going to not be a good place balance-wise, then truly here, what I'm going to suggest is that you start in a low lunge with your left leg forward, okay? So either one. In fact, I'm gonna cue the first time through like this, and then when we move to the other side, if you followed the pattern, you can stay in this lower lunge position, or you can move to full standing, which I'm going to do just to give you the counterpoint. Okay? So we're here in our low lunge, and let's just pause here. Okay? Take your hands up to your mid lunge. Okay? Drop your hands ever so slightly down past your sternum. Notice the point where the hands want to separate. Press your finger bases into one another. Don't lose track of your hips in space. Okay? And then tracing that line up, breathe up through the center of your body, hands past your nose, your forehead. I almost threw myself off. Come up, up, up. You might look up to your hands. That can be a challenging move. Okay? Just balance-wise. And then exhale. Hands can come down to the sides. And cycle back in. Good. From there, hands come down and frame that left foot, and then you can just balancing on your, or I should say pressing into your the pads of your fingers, step your left foot back, and we find ourselves here on fingertips and knees, or you can actually come down onto the palms, okay? Cupping your palms onto the mat as opposed to pressing them down and pancaking. And then from here, okay, you might cross your ankles. If you are comfortable with a full plank position, you could step your toes back into the plank, either with your knees down or up. Or, as I say, we're here. Take your hands, spin them into the mat, okay? Like you're trying to take your pinkies away from one another, okay, without moving your hands. And then just lower down slowly, okay? And then come through and up, and it could be a little cobra with the hips down, or it could be upward facing dog, okay? Move oh, I heard an O there, so moving gently through. Is that a good O? Awesome, okay. And then from here, come back onto the knees, and options. Either, if we're staying low, what I would suggest is tent those fingers again and come back into a sort of high pigeon pose. Sorry, a high child's pose. Okay. Really doesn't matter what we call it, just finding your way into it. Okay. Alternatively, if you are comfortable, you can curl your toes and press up into downward facing dog. Now, whichever version of this pose you decide to practice, it's totally cool. If you're in down dog, maybe just alternating, pressing one heel down gently, like we're not trying to push through the floor, just releasing and relaxing as you pedal the feet, raising your hips up toward the sky, spreading your fingers, spreading your toes. Everything's super chill. Okay. Ooh, nicey. All right. If you're in, by the way, if you're in that child's pose, same thing. You can be feeling like we're spreading the shoulder blades away from one another. You can sort of come up and down. Okay? Either way, let's bring our left, what side did I start on here? Our right foot, I should say, forward into our low lunge. See, I almost got crossed up there, and that's okay. This move, let's take our hands, so I've got my hands down by my right foot. Take your hands, sweep them back, back, back as far as you can go. So we're bringing our shoulders into extension. So we're always up here in the flexion. Let's move back. Good. And then sweep the arms up. Trace down through the center of your body, midline. And that is one side of your classical Surya Namaskar, okay? Or at least a version of it. Now I'm gonna come to stand for the second version, but if you were gonna move through, we're gonna actually start, you would be starting with your left leg back and your right forward. So we actually ended in the place we would wanna start. I think I've got that crossed up. I don't have that crossed up, but you can never tell. I mean, it's okay. As long as we're moving, we're good, okay? I'm actually gonna come up to stand. Okay, and if you're standing, pause for a second. Maybe your big toes kiss. Maybe on the next inhale, feeling like you're breathing from your big toes. If that language doesn't bother you, sometimes people are like, I don't have lungs in my toes, how dare you? Okay, but if you can go with that, okay, as a feeling, up from the big toes, up through past the legs, the waist, the belly button, the heart, your hands come up, they pass the midline of your face, they come up, and then extend, upward facing salute, take the hands out, turn them out, press them out into a T, and then slowly work your hips back, lower down, and forward fold. Hands can go, you can see I like coming into that extension move with the shoulder, maybe wrapping the hands to the backs of the legs. I went away. Oh. How about now? There we go. I think it's my phone is not cooperating. It was saying I'm low battery. So if I lose you, okay, so let's make this as a deal. I still have 20%. If I lose you, please do me a favor and immediately go into Shavasana. No, actually, all kidding aside, if I do lose battery, if I do lose power, that's where you'd want to head. Okay, so we were in our forward fold. Thanks for alerting me to that. Okay. Inhale, come up to a flat back, come halfway. Okay, and then exhale, hands come down. Okay, step the left foot back in space. Okay, and you can, again, you can come down to the knee or you can be up. Inhale, hands rise. Yes. Exhale, and this is just a little extra move because why not? Cactus arms. Inhale up. Exhale, hands come down, knee comes down, regardless of which version we're doing. Okay, and then step that right foot back. We're hands and knees. We're either back into that kind of loaded child's pose or press back into downward facing dog. Breathing here. Good. And then we're going to take our left foot back in space, step it up between our hands. Again, you can stay in this high lunge or the knee can be down. Inhale up through midline. Exhale, take the arms wide, sweep them down. They meet below, and then trace up through the midline of our body. Breathe the hands up, and step up. fold. One final time, we'll inhale and rise. And exhale, release. Okay, so there's a version of classical Suriname Namaskar. I don't know how classical it is if I'm riffing on it, but we'll let people figure that out. I don't. What's that, Deb? Yeah, you're right. That's. You're quite right. You know your asana history. That's quite right. I have so much I could say about that. I'm not going to. I'm not taking the bait. You're right though. That's a really good observation. It's and to some extent, I mean, no matter, you're quite right. I guess in this sense too, Deb, is that no matter how quote unquote classical anything is, we're really I genuinely don't know that there are any new ideas. Like, we're always standing on the shoulders of giants. We're always borrowing, I think, ideally from the wisdom of others. At least that's how it feels to me. And so I say to those yogis and gymnasts who came up with this, maybe not so long ago in antiquity. Thank you. That's pretty awesome. All right. I think the battery's going to hold it. Do you have it in you? How do you doing there? Do you want to do one more round of a different kind of salutation? A different kind? Okay. So I'm thinking, let's do Sun Salutation B, and which is going to force me to think, not on my feet, as it were. What I'll do is I'm gonna take you through the first version fully standing, and then I'm gonna see if I can riff with it, and you can see if you can too, if you would rather not be standing, in the sense of what feels accessible and what feels right. Okay. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna come to stand, and you can see I'm starting in this little kind of hunched up ball. Like, I put my knees onto my elbows onto my knees. Okay. And then from here, this may be a nice place to start, or the arms come up and we're in chair pose. So like we're sitting back in a chair that isn't there. Okay. Exhale, fold over your legs. Inhale, hands can come to your shins. Rise and flatten your back. Can you see? We're here. Good. And then exhale, plant your hands, and you can step one foot back, step the other foot back, and we're in a plank. Let's lower our knees, not because it's easier or anything. In fact, if you turn your hands out, okay, and press, come down, and there we are. Then let's take our hands wide, even wider than the mat, tend the fingers, and come up into a back bend. And if you feel any pinchiness in a normal dog here, I like taking the hands wide, and just creates a bit of space. Okay. Exhale, come on down. Hands pressed in. You can come up through all fours and then press up into downward facing dog. Equally, this could be that loaded child's pose I was talking about. Then from here, we're going to step the right foot forward. You might bring it part way, or you might bring it all the way up between your hands. Again, we can start with our knee down at the back. Inhale, and we come up into our low lunge. If you were standing, we turn the foot out and we come up into warrior one. Okay, and if we're not standing, we can still bring our arms up, just in a low lunge shape. Okay, then from here, take your back arm back, your left arm back, your right arm forward. And here we've got a low lunge warrior two, or warrior two. Either version. By the way, that little transition cycling up and down, not as easy as it might look, so just go slowly. You can come back into gentle, a version of gentle warrior, and then take both hands, frame the front foot, step back, find your lunge, any version you want, lower. Plank pose. what those yogis you would say, Deb would have called Chaturanga Dandasana. And then from here, again, let's go wide and find our back bend. Good. Exhale, come on down, hands come in, press back. I'm gonna come into that original child's pose this time, and then step that left foot up. Okay, good. Inhale, arms rise, a lowered warrior one. Nice, I can see it, loving it. Sweet, left hand comes forward, right comes back. Looking out over the middle finger, or standing. Come back into gentle warrior. And then windmill the arms in either version, wherever you are. Come down onto your knee. Good. Step the left foot back. Lower down. And then this time, let's lift our hands completely off the mat. The teeniest little baby cobra. You won't come up as far without being able to press, and that's kind of the point. Exhale, come down. Drop back into your child's pose or your downward facing dog. And then step up, chair pose, and done. Yeah. How's that? That was kind of was that okay? It really is. And well, and in part too, because I said I was going to do one standing and one down, and I really didn't. I was trying to give options for both as we moved through. So I hope that landed all right. I really, yeah, good. So, you know, I'll say more about it at the end, assuming the battery holds out. Let's actually come into a bridge pose. So we're gonna come down. Oh no! We gotta do this. I have a little bit of fun first. Not the bridge isn't fun, but let's actually just come to sit, feet in front of us. Okay. Now, often we'll come here and be in, some version of boat pose like that. But instead, what I'm gonna ask you today is to come into butterfly pose. So, soles of the feet come together. You might lift the heels slightly off the mat, and then drop the knees away from one another. Just a little stretch through the groins. Okay, then let's release that a little bit. 2 fingers on each hand, big toes, hook them. Now this is, and I want to be really, really clear, this is super tippy. So if we've got any balance issues going on, you might want, it crapped out on me. Yeah, I went away again. All right, here I go. We're down to 10%. That's okay. We've got enough time. It's fun to do this. It's like exciting. Are we gonna get to Shavasana? Okay, so we're hooked, okay? And we're not gonna go far. Instead, what we're gonna do is hold onto the toes and just bring the heels ever so slightly up off the mat, okay? If that doesn't feel accessible, I can take both, now it depends on the length of your fingers, but I can take both of my fingers to my right hand and take my left hand and hold on to something close to me. Yeah, see, now I'm balancing, right? Okay, or here. This is not a giving up. It's about finding what feels comfortable, okay? And then you can play with slowly, I'm gonna almost certainly spill here, but that's okay, that's kind of a point for me. Press into the fingers, maybe. There it is. Okay. It's just, again, you could play with that. That's kind of a fun one just while you're, how long can I balance? How far can I balance? What happens if I try to move? Anyway, okay. Now let's move into our fun bridge. All right, dropping onto our backs and finding our heels underneath our knees, bringing the backs of your arms into the mat, and then rising, starting from your tailbone, lift the hips up, low back, mid back, lift up,
You might tuck one arm under and then the other, shifting in to really like pull the shoulder blades toward one another, bringing your sternum up to the sky, bringing your knees toward one another. They're not touching, obviously, but so that they're not splaying out like I just did there to demo. Breathe. Feeling your butt lifting you in the air, pressing through the backs of the arms. Not turning your head, just chilling here. And then when you're ready, staying there if that feels good, or releasing. And then can you unwind one vertebra at a time? Come down, come down, come down. And now I really feel like I am playing with fire. So rather than, if you've got any other pose that you would like to do, it might be a little twist. That kind of feels nice. Let's do that. A little elementary twist, just dropping one to one side, both knees. Hi, Henry. Come here, bud. Hello, friend. There you go. And then sweeping both knees up, taking it to the other side. Maybe looking out over the other shoulder. And I'm just being mindful of the fact that I recognize I'm kind of racing the battery here, but please don't race in your practice. So no need to move through these poses fast at all. You don't all have to be going at the same pace. I'm gonna instead come back up, bring the legs out, tuck the shoulder blades in, roll the arms open, let everything then flop. Let's take one mindful breath together, meaning like you're feeling it from the beginning of picking up the inhale to the final bit of exhale out. So just let all the air fall out of your body without effort. And then all those things I said before, low, slow, nose, expand and soften. And then audibly through the mouth, sigh. This is an offense to the gods of asana to come out of a shavasana that quickly, but I'm just afraid that I'm going to lose you, and I really don't want to do that. Let's bring both knees up. Give yourself a hug. You might want to come back to your shavasana after we log off and literally just give yourself 10 minutes of just deep, gentle breathing. Okay, release the knees down to one side. Place your hand, press up, come back into sit. Yeah. And let's close out the practice, as we always do, with some gratitude. Thanking yourself. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you and you and you and you. Thank you. Always the highlight of my day, one of the highlights of my week. Moving and breathing with all of you, or sitting, meditation. I mean it, I feel it. Peace in and peace out. Thanks everyone. Next week, and by the way, doesn't have to be part of a big formal practice. Did you dig this? Because we can riff on different versions of salutations. I was kind of thinking we might do a salutation series over the next few weeks in the same way that we're doing the meta series. Next week, by the way, we're moving from sympathetic joy to equanimity, an equanimity-focused meditation practice next week. Coming from a person who admittedly has struggled so much, like equanimity is like the holy grail of the practice for me. So it's a really rich theme for us to sit with.
I look forward to doing that with you next week. And as much as I would love to stay in chat, I have a feeling that it's gonna the electronic gods are going to say no to that. So we leave it there and we pick it back up next week, hopefully with more battery on my end. Is that cool? Awesome. Thank you. Thanks for coming. How do you feel? Awesome. Right on. Okay, peeps. Be good to yourselves. You what? Sorry? Oh, please. Yes. Yay. Good for you. You are. That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that update. That's so fantastic. Good for you. Well, I will look for you standing tall with or without poles. With. All right. Take care, all. Bye. Bye.